What happened to every show that copied Gumball?
There are over 4 shows who have been accused of copying Gumball, with similar elements such as animation, characters, writing, and so much more. So today, we're gonna go through all these Gumball clones and see what happened to them, how similar they really are to Gumball, and where they are today. Starting with the most infamous one, Miracle Star, which follows the life of a goat named Meowly Shing, and his talking pet frog Gua Gua, but instead of producing a somewhat new and original
This looks like Gumball. They didn't try to change anything besides the animals.
Instead of producing a somewhat new and original show, the creators saw the success of The Amazing World of Gumball and tried to make a knockoff version with their own versions of the Gumball characters. And they didn't even try to hide it. This show just blatantly copied entire scenes from Gumball, only swapping out the characters for ones they actually owned. For example, one scene they copied came directly from the first episode of Gumball, titled The DVD. In that episode, Nicole reminds Gumball to return a DVD of alligators on a train before they get fined. At first, Gumball tries to talk his way out of it, but after seeing Nicole punch the wall because of her full
And that's why she's one of the strongest characters in Gumball. I don't know if y'all know that, but that's why she's one of the strongest characters in Gumball.
At first, Gumball tries to talk his way out of it, but after seeing Nicole punch the wall because of her full anger, he quickly agrees to return it. But in the Miracle Star version, the exact same scene is played, the only difference being their characters. But this isn't the only time
They didn't even try to hide it, bro. They literally took the blueprint and ran with it. The houses even look similar, bruh. I ain't gonna lie, I would have sent them a cease and desist.
being their characters. But this isn't the only time Miracle Star copied Gumball scene by scene. If you search for comparison videos on YouTube, you will find multiple clips of Miracle Star directly copying Gumball, with the only real difference being the character designs. But even the characters themselves weren't unique. The family was simply swapped out with different animals, with Anais being the only one not having a counterpart, possibly due to China's former one-child policy, which restricted most families to only having one child, as well as boys being favored over girls in China. Other characters were also given counterparts. Carrie was replaced by a pot of broccoli, Masami's design remained mostly the same, with the only change being her color, and Bobbert was swapped out for their own robot. Instead of taking the boring approach and suing Miracle Star, Cartoon Network thought it'd be fun to make fun of the whole situation in an actual episode called The Copycats. And this episode starts with the Wattersons grocery shopping in the exotic food section. Gumball and Darwin make fun of strange items, but as they walk away, their counterparts, Chi-Chi and Ribbit, appear and begin repeating what Gumball and Darwin have.
This is not the same frog though. This character looks similar. They made parody characters of the characters that was stolen from them. I thought they did a collab with them. Nah, they hinted that they knew about it and they recognized it, but they not worried about it because Gumball is the best show of all time. Like, I wouldn't be worried about it either.
But as they walk away, their counterparts, Chi-Chi and Ribbit, appear and begin repeating what Gumball and Darwin have said. Chi-Chi and Ribbit are versions that the Gumball team made up that's supposed to look like a reference to Miracle Star's characters, but they most likely only took this approach for legal reasons, because they didn't want to be labeled as copycats themselves for using it in this episode. At home, Gumball discovers that their counter-
How the hell would how would y'all be accused of copying someone when y'all the original? Ain't no way people in China think that Miracle Star is the original show. They ain't never seen Gumball. I will go over there and subtitle Gumball for Chinese people myself. And I will make sure they watch Peak because Gumball is one of the best shows ever. How many times do I have to say it?
At home, Gumball discovers that their counterparts are Chinese TV stars profiting off the copied versions of the Wattersons episodes. Like the DVD as previously mentioned, they do get a little laugh from their counterparts' descriptions, all of them except for Anais, who feels left out because she doesn't have a doppelganger, because obviously they don't like daughters in China. But little did the Wattersons know this would actually end up saving them later in the episode. Fast forward a little bit and they find out that they're copying everything they do. So trying to stop them, they decide to fight against their copycats. But it's pretty much an even match because they're all just using their own moves against each other. Then Anais points out that the copycats aren't really trying to be evil, they're just lacking originality. So the family breaks into a song encouraging them to find their own style and be themselves. But but that doesn't work, and the copycats immediately post their own version of what happened.
What?
As a last-ditch effort, the Watersons put their own lives at risk, doing the most dangerous stunts, hoping they kill off their copycats. However, that doesn't work, so they take it to the next level and get on a burning truck that's going towards an unfinished bridge. At first, it seems like they're completely screwed, but Anais uses her big brain and thinks of disconnecting the tank from the truck, helping them, well, not die. But without an Anais of their own, the copycats fall to their demise, being the end of the copycats. After the episode aired, Miracle Star received tons of backlash, having a 1 out of 10 rating on IMDb, leading to its cancellation in 2017. But Miracle Star wasn't the only show that tried to copy Gumball. Back in 2009, there was a show called Pinky Malinky, which follows the main character who's also called Pinky Malinky, who's just trying to fit into a human world. That's pretty much it. He has 2 best friends.
It don't look that bad. I might watch this. It kind of reminds me of Gumball. Nah, I'm playing. No, but for I like the animation so far.
Pretty much it. He has 2 best friends, JJ and Babs, who are always by his side. At first glance, it's pretty easy to notice that the animation style is quite similar to the Amazing World of Gumball. And there's actually a reason for that. The show's creator, Christopher Millard, worked as a storyboard artist on Gumball in season 1 and a writer for season 2. And you can tell this by looking at the very first episode of Pinky Malinky called Snacks, which starts in the Foodman Market Mart, where Pinky explains how important the snack Poppins is to the town of Snackenham, and how much it impacted his life. But soon, his friends discover that Poppins are being discontinued, which causes chaos throughout the city. When Pinky hears the news, he inflates like a balloon and bursts into the air. Immediately, it's clear that Pinky doesn't have the same physical limitations as his human friends. His body is extremely stretchy and aggressive, used for tons of visual gags.
What?
He can stretch incredibly far, shrink in size, and basically do things that no human could, which is very similar to the exaggerated movements of many Gumball characters. That said, these wacky stretch gags aren't special to Gumball. Plenty of animated shows like SpongeBob, Animatics, Tom and Jerry, and so much more use a similar format, where the main character can do a bunch of movements and stuff that can't be replicated in reality TV shows. Also, in a 2009 pilot of Pinky Malinky, Pinky has always been a character who can transform and do a lot of things with his body. All before Gumball was even a thing, because Gumball was created in 2011, which means that Pinky Malinky was never intended as a copy of Gumball. But because of the timing, Pinky was seen—
I know y'all heard that sound. This is why people say cartoons weren't meant for kids. Why was that sound happening and he making this goddamn face? That's that shit we be talking about, Cartoon Network. This is on Netflix, but this that shit we be talking about.
Gumball. But because of the timing, Pinky was seen as a ripoff. But the similarities don't stop there. One of Gumball's standout traits is its used mixed animation styles. From 3D to puppets to live action characters, you name it, and they've done it. Which is what makes Gumball so unique. Pinky Malinky, while sticking to mostly basic character designs, isn't afraid to experiment with different animation styles. For example, in the beginning of the episode Change, there's a little gag moment where Pinky Malinky and JJ turn into real-life versions of themselves, with Pinky becoming an actual hot dog and JJ turning into a girl version of himself. However, you could say that Christopher Miller didn't try to copy Gumball, but he instead took inspiration and learned from his experience and time working at the show. I would end it here, however, one of the characters from Pinky Malinky seems to be an exact copy of another character in the Amazing World of Gumball, that character being Babs. This is definitely a stretch, but think about it. She's basically Darwin if he were human and girl.
Darwin is black. That's confirmation, y'all. Darwin is definitely black.
That character being Babs. This is definitely a stretch, but think about it. She's basically Darwin if he were human and girl. They both wear green and orange. They're nice, supportive, and serve as a friend for the main character. It's possible that Babs was designed as a reference to Christopher Millard's previous work, for something fans could point out and laugh at, but she's not. She's a major support character who appears in multiple episodes, and when a character is similar not only in design but also in personality traits, traits, it stops feeling like a
They even have the same head. I can literally see it. They even have the same head, y'all. It's not even a reach no more, bro. That's definitely his reference.
And when a character is similar not only in design but also in personality traits, it stops feeling like a funny cameo and starts feeling more like they took Darwin, changed his gender, and called it a day. So
They took Darwin, changed his gender, and made him a fish. That is definitely Darwin. I don't care what nobody has to say.
Personality traits, it stops feeling like a funny cameo and starts feeling more like they took Darwin, changed his gender, and called it a day. So is Pinky Malinky a ripoff of Gumball? Well, I don't think so. Despite its many similarities, of course, there are going to be parallels in animation, plot, and character dynamics when one of Gumball's original creatives is behind the show. But that doesn't necessarily make it right. It's okay to take inspiration from something you helped create, as long as you bring something new to the table.
Yep.
Take Rebecca Sugar. For example, before creating Steven Universe, she was one of the main writers and storyboard artists for Adventure Time, another really popular show.
Damn.
But instead of copying Adventure Time's characters, plot, and animation style, she used what she learned from the experience and built something original. That's why Steven Universe became such a success.
Goated.
It had lovable characters, an interesting story, and different animation. There's a difference between being inspired by something and copying it. To quote Gumball himself, be your own you, try something new, and find your own things to do. And that quote will be important for this next show we're going to talk about. Just keep that in mind.
Okay.
But to answer the last question, what happened to Pinky Malinky? Well, it seems that Pinky Malinky was canceled. Though there's no official news that the show was canceled. The show was completed for years, but it didn't release until 2019. With all that time the show was finished, the people behind it probably moved on. Not only that,
I don't think it would have done that well. I'm not even trying to be a hater, and I know I've been riding Gumball the whole time, but why would you watch this show when you already have Peak, y'all? Like, make it make sense. You already have Gumball. Why would you watch this? Y'all might be mad by how much I'm going hard for Gumball, but all these shows that copy Gumball, none of these shows are better than Gumball. You might as well watch Gumball.
not only that, but when the show was first announced, it immediately got backlash for supposedly being a knockoff of Gumball, which put the final nail in the coffin for another season. And since we're talking about Netflix, the platform that hosted the show, they are notorious for canceling less popular shows to put more money into shows that seem more successful. But another lesser known show that has also been accused of copying Gumball is Elliot from Earth. Elliot from Earth follows a boy and his mom who are transported across the universe, landing in a strange world filled with aliens, far from their home.
Don't they have a movie like this? A Disney movie coming out called Elliot or something? Am I tripping? I don't know why, but when I heard that, I automatically thought about this movie right here.
Landing in a strange world filled with aliens, far from their home planet, which is Earth, they try to find out who brought them here and why. They start building a new life on this planet and eventually meet some characters, including Mo, the talking dinosaur. Unlike other shows,
Peep, the dinosaur is green and orange. They can't just stop copying Gumball. The show is so goated that every show has to copy Gumball. Green and orange sidekick? Like come on, bro. Who else is doing it like that?
Unlike other shows I've mentioned before, Elliot from Earth doesn't exactly have anything that stands out that could be considered a copy of Gumball. One of the first things you'd probably notice while watching Elliot from Earth is how much the animation reminds you of Gumball. Both shows have those moments where the animation really goes all out. Super detailed, almost cinematic shots you'd never expect in a cartoon.
The Shining?
It really shows how much effort went into making both shows. So why do they look so similar? Well, it's not just a coincidence. They were actually made by the same UK-based branch of Cartoon Network Studios. The shared production team explains a lot, from fluid character animation to the detailed backgrounds. You can totally see similar things in both shows. Not only that, but Sarah Fell, one of the producers on Gumball, actually stepped up as a creative director for Elliot from Earth, which is probably why both shows have a similar vibe, same humor, and really identical identical animation, even if the Gumball animation can be explained by them being produced by the same team that brought us Gumball. There's a character that also seems really closely similar to Darwin, which is very similar to the previous situation with Pinky Malinky. For starters, they both have positive and curious outlooks on life, always trying to do the right thing and make others feel happy and included. Both characters are incredibly loyal friends. Darwin is always by Gumball's side no matter how wild things get, and Mo forms a strong bond with Elliot, sticking with him through every adventure. But that makes sense for a character who is supposed to support the main character. However, there's more. They are also both highly adaptable. Darwin goes from a pet fish to a walking fish who has implemented himself in the Watterson family, and Mo, who was originally a dinosaur walking on his 4 legs, adapted to walking on 2 legs. And they use glasses for his weak eyesight. They both even have a similar color scheme, with Darwin and Mo each having green and orange colors.
I said that.
So is Elliot from Earth a ripoff of Gumball?
Nah.
Well, from what I can gather, I don't believe so. While the show might share some surface level similarities with Gumball, Elliot from Earth seems to lean more towards its story-driven scenes rather than your typical cartoon.
Okay.
Its characters, storytelling, and writing feel unique and very promising. Unfortunately though, the show was quietly canceled after only 16 episodes.
Dang.
Although it was never officially canceled, enough time has passed since the first season finale for many to assume it won't return for a second season. And it seems that there's a cliffhanger in the last episode, which makes things even worse for big fans of the show.
Was it good?
Not only that, but the show's creator and showrunner, Guillaume Cassoda, parted ways with Cartoon Network just a few months after the finale. Then, in 2022, the show was removed from HBO Max, along with several other Cartoon Network titles to save an extra buck. Out of all of the shows on this list, Elliot from Earth feels like the most promising one that ended too soon. Given it was created by some of the talent behind the amazing world of Gumball, I wouldn't be surprised if the show could pull you in with its unique characters and world like Gumball did. However, the next show accused of copying Gumball is Harvey Beaks. This show follows a bluebird named Harvey and his friends. Fee?
I've watched a little bit of this show, like a little bit. I didn't really like it, but I watched it. I tried to watch it. I have no idea what this show is about, but I did try to watch it.
This show follows a bluebird named Harvey and his friends, Fee and Foe, as they explore their life in Little Bark Grove. At first glance, nothing about this show really screams to be a copy of Gumball. Both shows take place in different environments and both have different animation styles. They are also both produced by different networks, until you realize Harvey, Fee, and Foe are similar to Gumball, Darwin.
They're literally the same colors. That's definitely Gumball.
Harvey, Fee, and Foe.
That's Darwin. And this is Anais. Y'all cannot tell me that I'm tripping, bro. They're literally the same colors.
Also both produced by different networks, until you realize Harvey, Fee, and Foe are similar to Gumball, Darwin, and Anais. At first glance, it might seem like they are totally different groups, but when you dive deeper into them, you can see some similarities between each group. Each trio is made up of young, adventurous characters with unique personalities that balance each other out. Harvey is the kind, thoughtful one, kind of like Darwin. Fee is the chaotic one who reminds you of Gumball, and Foe, while not as smart as Anais, kind of reflects her dumber side, as seen in the episode The Goons. Not only that, but they also share similar color schemes. Gumball is blue like Harvey, Fee is pink like Anais, and Foe is orange like Darwin. Speaking of Foe and Darwin, Darwin and Foe both grew up without their families and have a similar backstory.
Aww.
We know that Darwin was sold to Richard in the episode The Origins, where he was thought of as just a pet fish. But after being separated, the love between Darwin and Gumball kept their spirits and hopes up that he would return.
Aww.
And return he did. Despite all the challenges he had to face, he was given opportunities that make him the fish we all know today. Although we still don't know who Darwin's parents are or how he ended up in the shopkeeper's van. And even though Darwin would like to know who his parents are or where he grew up, he found a new family who love him and treat him than more than just a pet. When it comes to Fee and Foe, though, they were both separated by their parents and had to survive on their own. Although they did reunite with their parents, Fee and Fo looked up to Harvey's parents when their parents weren't there, and thought of Harvey as family. A random similarity, but Harvey's family were also animals like the Wattersons. But this is definitely a reach. As for the environment, Harvey lives in a literal forest, so that makes sense because they're birds, but it's definitely something to point out. So is Harvey Beaks a ripoff of Gumball? From what I can gather, once again, I don't see it. The two shows have their own unique style, tones, and
it just seems like they took inspiration from Gumball. A lot of these shows did. I wouldn't say they're direct copycats besides the first one. That is definitely a copycat. But all the other shows, I wouldn't say they're direct copycats, but you could definitely tell that they were inspired by Gumball.
The two shows have their own unique style, tones, and stories. There might be a few similarities between them, but it doesn't seem like they're straight up copying Gumball, and more like taking inspiration, which makes total sense. Since both shows were created by C.H. Greenblatt, what really sets apart Harvey Beaks is how deep the show can actually get. Harvey Beaks isn't afraid to tackle deeper themes, like family and even death. Topics that are surprisingly heavy for a kid's cartoon. Not to say Gumball doesn't also have these moments as well, as they have many episodes that can get quite story-driven. But compared to other shows running on Nickelodeon, Harvey Beaks was definitely one of the few who had moments like this in the show, making it unique and interesting. Not only that, but it seems the fan communities for both The Amazing World of Gumball and Harvey Beaks often show love for both cartoons. As for what happened to Harvey Beaks, the show was ultimately canceled after 2 seasons, possibly because it never reached the same popularity as other Nickelodeon shows that were on at the time.
The only show on Nickelodeon that's new that I think is good is Craig of the Creek. I don't know if y'all seen it, but I've seen enough to be like, hey, this show has potential.
Because it never reached the same popularity as other Nickelodeon shows that were on at the time, like SpongeBob or The Fairly Odd Parents. The show then was eventually pushed to Nicktoons, where it seemed to be left to die.
Dang.
But because you made it all the way to the end of the video, you should subscribe. And if you don't want to, that's okay. But if you enjoyed this video and you want to help us create more content like this, it really helps us out.
W video, man. W video. Y'all let me know in the comments below how y'all feel about that. Do you feel like them shows were copycats, or do you think they just took inspiration? Other than that, I'll see you guys next one. Peace.